In reply, Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. In comparing himself to Dr. Navin Ramgoolam, may I remind the Honorable Ramkorn what has been said in this context before in the House to him. Même à terre, un éléphant est bien plus haut qu'un chien debout. Mr. Speaker, sir,
I will ask you, order please. I will ask you to withdraw this quotation. I heard this quotation once. By mistake, I should say, I allowed it. But you have to withdraw this quotation. It hurts people. It is abusive. You are abusing your right of speech. And I, as a speaker, am ordering you to withdraw that quotation and apologize and continue. Deal, no deal.
I will apologize and withdraw, but I wish to tell you...
You continue. Don't discuss with the speaker. There is nothing of that sort, either in asking me or in the standing orders.
Okay.
There is no discussion between a member and the speaker. So, there is no debate. Debate is the opposition and the government. I am an innocent personality here. Please.
It's a good one. I've been talking to people about this year's budget to have a feel of what they think. Even before coming to the House this morning, I've met the two laureates of my constituency, Mr. Devesh Madhu and Mr. Kenshi Nyukfon, both from the economic stream. I've also met senior citizens of Club 3e Âge de Camp-Chaplon. That region has now approximately been added to my constituency. The government has titled this year's budget, "Tomorrow is Ours." One must congratulate the Minister of Finance for yet another piece of financial magic in the same outrageous style as his previous offerings. All smoke and mirrors that will have failed to deceive even the youngest child, let alone the voters. It is just another example of what Mr. Tharman Shanmugaratnam, President of the Republic of Singapore, has termed magical thinking. He applies it to governments that spend first and then borrow in order to fund the spending, contrary to the more honest practice in Singapore. The grand financier magician has ticked all the boxes for all the voters, something for everyone. But it is just on all tick, paid for by that grand credit card giving us goodies now and then leaving us and our children to pay for it with interest tomorrow. So tomorrow with debt around our necks. And such magical thinking always ends in tears. Not for the Minister of Finance, who will be going again, laughing to the Bank of Mauritius to bail him out by printing more fake riches, but tears for the poor people of Mauritius who are fated yet again to foot the bill. Immediately after the Minister of Finance has put down his wand, that well-respected economist, Mr. Pierre Ginan, stated, "On reste sur notre faim sur les moyens de financement des mesures." And Eric Ning, "Cet argent qu'on donne à gauche et à droite sera mangé par l'inflation d'ici 3 à 6 mois." How right he is, for soaring inflation has turned all our lives, especially the poor, into a daily nightmare. Even the Minister of Finance admits to the public sector debt at paragraph 20 of the budget speech, for it has now reached the level approaching 2 million rupees per family of 4. And this dreadful burden excludes the 6.7 billion rupees of supplementary expenditure that was on the table yesterday. For us, the title of this budget should be "Tomorrow is looking bleak" instead of "Tomorrow is ours." our rupee is dangerously heading in the same direction as the Zimbabwean currency. Here in that country, people are rushing to foreigners at the airport to sell their local currencies for US dollars and to get rid of their perpetually downgraded currency. May this never happen here, despite the efforts of this government to do just that. With such spiraling inflation, it is no surprise that people expect this Minister of Finance to bail them out every year with a chunky increase in pensions and other allocations, and so he waves that one again to placate an otherwise angry electorate. This is not fiscal responsibility, but political panic. But the voters are not dupes. They know well enough, as Margaret Thatcher warned, I quote, "Let us not forget this fundamental truth. The state has no money other than the money people earn themselves." End of quotation. And just watch out when you go next to the ATM machine, how many of the notes are newly printed. A daily measure of the fiscal panic the government is in. The country needs a bold change in government and a strong person at the head of the Bank of Mauritius. We on this side of the house are ready for this, and so is the country. For this government is having rupees printed as if there is no tomorrow, stocking inflation, expecting the people to pay off growing bad debt. I will now turn to other aspects of the economic mismanagement of the country under this government's watch. Let us look at capital assets and expenditure. One of the much heralded measures of last year's budget presentation was the pulling down of the Emmanuel Anctil building to make way for a mini forest. That was a false environmental dawn. As I, an environmentalist at heart, explained in the House, this measure was devoid of any cohesive thought as revealed in the report by the engineers of the Ministry of National Infrastructure itself. The engineers were wild and dumbfounded to learn from that poorly prepared budget speech how their minister was asking for more money to renovate the building, yet simultaneously proposing to demolish it. The government has shot itself in the foot on one capital project after another, as with the bicycle industry and the planting of forests of 1 billion trees. The record this government has on capital projects is a long history of never constructing any new dams for the people of Mauritius, despite water shortages. My constituents and others far and wide have continuously complained about, and yet it was that same party qui a eu le culot to coin that term, ou plutôt ce mirage de l'eau 24/7. And ask for our compatriot in Rodrigues what they think about de l'eau 24/7, when it is more likely to have their water once a week. The two most recent dams, the Midlands dams and the Bagatelle Dam, were initiated during Dr. Navin Ramgoolam's time as Prime Minister. And the other dams were around before the MSM were even created. I know the Honorable Ganu inaugurated the Bagatelle Dam that was initiated, not the Bagatelle, the Midlands Dam that was initiated by Dr. Navin Ramgoolam. I was present for the laying of foundation stone of the Bagatelle Dam. The fact remains that the MSM that has not been able to even lay a foundation stone for the Rivière des Anguilles Dam, which appears again in the budget and which has been without fail mentioned in all budget speeches since 2014. While we may be poking fun on the government for the anguilles sous roche in the Rivière des Anguilles Dam, some unfulfilled commitments are full of repercussions, even on this year's budget because of the financial implications to the tune of 6.5 billion US dollars, more than 300 million rupees, which the Republic of Mauritius claims to the international community is needed to mitigate and adapt to climate change, and that has become a strong commitment. To support this claim, we are all aware that the Honorable Prime Minister has at COP26 took a commitment to achieve 60% of green energy, renewable energy, in our mix by 2030 and to phase out coal in electricity generation by 2030 in the fight against climate change, which is a big chunk of 31 paragraphs in the budget speech. Paradoxically, on the budget day itself, Statistics Mauritius has published not 60%, but 17.6% as the new historically low figure of renewable energy. And then, amazingly, there will be an increase in the use of coal for electricity production, totally opposite to the serious undertaking of the Prime Minister at COP26. This figure is bound to go lower because if you see the projected investment under National Resilience Fund, under item Biomass Framework in the budget documents, the allocated funds will be decreased by 149 million rupees this year. Just to remind the House, it was in 2013, when Labour Party was in charge, renewable energy production represented 23.4% of electricity mix. And it has since dwindled to 17.6% as per Statistics Mauritius figures. And now the government is still claiming they will achieve the 60% target within this decade. Please stop taking us for fools. Forget about 60% or zero coal targets because the country has gone backwards since 2014 and they would need a whole bunch of magic wands to recover. By the way, my constituents in number 2 keep complaining to me about the breakdown in electricity supply in several localities recently. And this is, I believe, and I'm being told, can be attributed to the broken down diesel engine at the Serenity Power Station in Pai. This means that more coal will have to be burned. I hope it has been repaired. This means that more coal has been burned in order to supply electricity if ever enough capacity was available, and that we are not already walking on a tightrope in electricity generation. A term the Honorable Paul Béranger has time and again used in the House, la courtraide. The House will also recall how many millions of rupees have been thrown down the drain with the new consultancy services to Poten and Partners under Honorable Colin Davelou's ministership for the production of electricity through the combined cycle gas turbines, on which I have not been slow to remind this House through many parliamentary questions. At paragraph 256, the Honorable Minister of Finance says the access to water is a basic need. My constituents keep also reminding me about what has happened to the promised 5.2 kilometers of DI pipe of 400 millimeters diameter to bring additional 2,000 meter cube of water daily from Plaine-Lausanne to Upper Monroe Reservoir to benefit 4,000 families of Valley Pito, Trangba, and Bangladesh who have severe water supply problems. The Honorable Lejonga informed the House that the project was supposed to start in November 2023. The project never started. My constituents who are taxpayers and who pay their CWA bills have the right to know why that project never started. Honorable Lejonga, who said that during Committee of Supply last year. I hope he will provide us with an explanation about why this project never started so far. Or has that money, by magic, gone somewhere else? Now, let me look at another disaster area of capital commitment. The pipe replacement program of the CWA. This has been an utter failure. After having invested massively in pipe replacement, non-revenue water, instead of decreasing, has increased dramatically. It has badly increased from 50% during the Labour Party time to 64.5% under the MSM, using Statistics Mauritius published figures last Friday, despite official attempt at a cover-up. This is because pipe replacement is being done purely for pleasing smart city developers and in certain areas, even for wooing votes and not to replace the real tuyau PSA. The cover-up is compounded by the instance of a young lady public officer being compelled to resign precisely because of issues related to the very in-house pipe replacement program at the CWA.
So you use the word cover-up. Withdraw that word and apologize.
Okay, withdraw and apologize.
Withdrawn and apologize.
Instead of the general manager of the CWA being sanctioned because of the obvious failure of the pipe replacement program under his watch, the courageous lady has been the subject of harassment, which is punishable under our laws. I say for my constituents in number 2, Vallée-Piteau, Trangbar, Watcat, now Belle Village, La Butte, Plaine-Lezan, Bonnefin, Paille-Gibis, and Sorèze, to hear me loud and clear as they know. I have so far striven to resolve their daily problem, street lighting, drainage problem, their damaged roads, damaged road layers like biscuits that everybody saw on social media. These were in my constituency at La Bourdonnais Street, and the appalling state of sports facilities. Now that the Minister of Finance has announced at paragraph 269 the renovation of 34 football and 20 mini soccer pitches, I hope the Minister of Youth and Sports will ensure that proper standards are maintained, because those renovations undertaken recently are a real cause of health hazard to users because of the lack of cushioning is a cause of knee injuries. So I can tell the House that many youngsters are reluctant to use these facilities and unfortunately may fall prey to fléaux tels que la drogue. Let me now turn to social issues. The budget speech in 4 short paragraphs between paragraph 324 to 328, titled Crusade Against Drug Trafficking, is devoid of any profound thinking on this real problem. How can they limit the fight against drug to seizures of drug and registration of SIM cards only? There is certainly not enough being given to this serious problem of drug addiction prevailing in the country. The fight against drug addiction goes beyond, and it includes important considerations like, number 1, prevention, number 2, treatment, number 3, rehabilitation, number 4, reintegration, and number 5, aftercare. What of the claim tomorrow is ours? There are no bold measures for our youth, our real tomorrow. Let me now zoom in into domains I've canvassed many a times here in Parliament because of their importance. At the apex, I mentioned pool and management, the cause of much havoc. The House will recall that since the last general election of 2019, I have questioned the Honorable Obigadu twice about why is it that the National Land Development Strategy is taking so long to be revised, an exercise which was started by his predecessor, the Honorable Mahomed in 2019, 5 very long years ago. Never before have I seen it takes more than a full mandate of 5 years to develop a strategic document. Never before. I was told in the House that it is due to COVID and land drainage strategy, but these are long behind us. The budget paragraph is silent on this, but talks extensively on social housing from paragraph 430 to 442, 12 paragraphs. The minister talks about the supposed bilan in housing, but he hides the fact that most of the land that is being used today for development of social housing come from the land bank of 2,008 acres of land that Dr. Navin Ramgoolam had negotiated with the big landowners in 2006 through the MSPA. That was a historical deal indeed. The House will also recall that in March 2007, the Labour Party-led government had amended through Parliament Section 5 of the State Land Act to allow the selling of all plots of land for houses, including 19,500 ex-CHA houses, the then more than 1,000 housing units developed by the NHDC at that time in 2014, and other thousands of plots of leases of land on which stand social housing for 2,000 rupees per lot. The biggest democratic exercise of democracy to land access in Mauritius ever. From 2019 onwards, under the mandate of Honorable Obigadu, this has unfortunately experienced a complete slowdown. And in some places, like in my own constituency, a halt. I've asked parliamentary questions on this, and even at Committee of Supply stage in 2022. But I'm still awaiting a clear reply, and so are my constituents and the population at large. I've worked in that ministry, and also as managing director of the NSDC Limited. I've taken a lot of parliamentary time through parliamentary question and interventions at adjournment time, and on how much money has been wasted through useless consultancy exercises with fat packages for the staff at the NSLD, the so-called SPV, New Social Living Development Limited. I've submitted the full figures in Parliament last year, and I've gone at the length to explain how bypassing tender procedures ended up in a festival de contrat for the 8,000 units at 2.7 million rupees per unit, excluding the sunk cost, the hidden cost, and other facilities to contractors. I just hope that these houses will not have flooding problems like we've had in Chebel, Gros Caillou, or even during construction lately at Arsenal, which was a subject of parliamentary question of mine. Now, in this comedy or government errors, let me turn from the Ministry of Land Use Planning to the Ministry of National Infrastructure, being covered in budget speech from paragraph 261 to 264. Let me mention my astonishment on hearing what the Honorable Hari Ram has mentioned about this government protecting the Vallée de Féané. I would invite him to go and read my intervention on the subject on 19 April 2022 on the Professional Town Planners Council Bill, only 2 years ago, not very far away, as to how the construction contract that was awarded between 2000 and 2005 by the MSM-led government for a highway to pass through that valley, and for which, on becoming Prime Minister in 2005 onwards, Dr. Navin Ramgoolam had that contract cancelled, albeit paying damages, for the sake of protection of biodiversity and the protection of the environment at large. These are facts, and they are undeniable. And Maurice Jurap was born in the spirit of the Vallée de Féané, as a matter of fact, and Professor Joël Dorené came into the picture. Now, I've often heard some ministers citing Joël Dorené's criticism on Maurice Jurap. But what these ministers, the Honorable Colin Davelu, then minister, Honorable Balgobi, Honorable Ramano, did not tell the House is that after the general elections of 2014, the MSM had elevated Professor Joël Dorené, former advisor of Dr. Navin Ramgoolam, s'il vous plaît, to the rank of Grand Commander of the Star and Key of the Indian Ocean, alongside the Honorable Fazila Jiwadoriaou, who will be speaking after me. He was raised. Professor Joël Dorené was issued a GCSK. So allez comprendre why the criticism on Maurice Jurap.
Order. We are on the budget.
Yeah.
We are on the budget.
But,
you're an intelligent member, so talk on the budget.
I am. I now resolutely move to national infrastructure. I was again astonished to hear the Honorable Hari Ram saying during his speech that a house has collapsed because of heavy rainfall. Totally false. That house is in my constituency, and it is one of the affected houses there. The house collapsed during heavy rainfall, for sure, but it collapsed because of the very serious mismanagement of drain projects at the level of the NDU and the Ministry of National Infrastructure, and people could have lost their lives. Unfortunately, and fortunately, this did not happen. In the House, I have tabled my own email warning about the foreseeable problems before the collapse. Same type of letter from the contractor and from consultant Gibb Mauritius, which refused to continue with this project even before the collapse of the building, and replaced by consultant Lux Consult on 19 January 2024, again even before the collapse of the House on 21st April 2024. If you read the post-mortem report of Lex Consult, which I hold a copy in my hands today, that report explains in great details, in 9 points, how the establishment has failed. And point number 8 is clear and damning against the NDU and the Ministry of Public Infrastructure specifically. And it reads as follows. The contractual documents and specifications demonstrates a lack of clarity regarding the limitations on the working zones, the maximum open space at a time, and specific provisions for specialist works such as sheet piling, strutting, and shoring. End of quotation. And the minister talks about methodology, the Minister Hariram, when the very tender exercise, the very tender documents issued by his own department, NDU, are full of flaws, are explained by his own consultant, paying for taxpayers' money. Lux Consult has explained in great detail the lacunas of establishment, while the country is eagerly awaiting the report conducted by the Deputy General Manager of the Road Development Authority. Now, since we are on the Road Development Authority, let me take one item from the Director of Audit's report, the latest report, and one example at paragraph 17.12 reads as follows. No justifications could be provided by the Ministry of National Infrastructure for a total of 72 million rupees as to no details being available for the approved list of maintenance and rehabilitation of roads and bridges that should be taken by the RDA. 772 million rupees. That's a lot of money unaccounted for. How can we...
I have been listening to the honourable member of opposition. He's completely outside the ambit, the parameters of a budget debate. He's got nothing to do with the budget.
Order.
Which part of the budget are you referring to?
Order. Honourable Mia, you are not the speaker. Honourable member, address the speaker, and you are usurping my power. Apologize for that. Of course you should apologize. Of course you should apologize for that. You are usurping the power of the speaker. You should apologize, or if you don't apologize, you know what you have to do. You can't do that every time. Every time you're doing it, I know, I feel it. You're a good friend of mine, apologize. If you don't apologize, as a good friend, I would ask you to walk out. So, Honorable, I was to say minister, sorry. Honorable Osman Mohamed, I told you, you're a very intelligent guy, so please, confer yourself.
Mr. Speaker, so are you.
Mr.
Speaker, so are you. Mr. Speaker, how can we not talk about money when we are talking about the budget? 762 million rupees. It's not cake, it's money.
Now I will listen.
What kind of minister are you?
No, this is not, you have to apologize for that. You have to apologize for that. Withdraw that word and apologize. You know why? The point of order, the right to raise a point of order is given to any member in this House. You are all elected members. Everybody has the same right. So when the minister raised the point of order, you're saying, what kind of minister you are? What is that? Apologize for that.
Okay.
You already apologized. Please continue.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah. So I repeat the figure again. Even the Honorable Ganu did not object. He is a good parliamentarian. 772 million rupees. 772 million rupees, Alangano. Honorable Alangano. Unaccounted for. This is very serious. Someone will have to answer for this in a few months' time. As regards the drain projects, the Honorable Ishan Juman has inside and outside the House explained The damning remarks of the Director of Audit, I shall not go over this, I shall not go over this again. Did you know that 3 weeks ago, in the month of May, the CEO of Drain Infrastructure Company Limited, that is chaired by Mr. Avinash Gopi, and which had a whopping budget of 10.4 million rupees on its creation, well, that CEO, one Mr. Ramjatan, has resigned from the DICL. He has resigned, just like the lady at the CWA. Allez comprendre. Let me now address one project being funded in this budget, the proposed construction of a gymnasium at Abercrombie. I've never seen in my whole professional life, I've never come across that it is during only construction that the client realizes that his building cannot possibly sustain an additional floor when the alarm bell was rung, not by the engineers, not by the consultant, but the operators in the market there. I was even more surprised to learn from the Honorable Subhashini Lakshman-Roy, who I respect as an MP. And she was frank. And she spoke. La PPS Subhashini Lakshman-Roy a évoqué les difficultés rencontrées lors des travaux avant d'assurer que le projet est étroitement suivi par les ministres Léjonga et Eriram. Le projet devrait coûter 68,7 millions de roupies. Mais maintenant, avec les travaux de consolidation, il coûte 174 millions de roupies, a-t-elle expliqué. Very frankly so. Avant d'exprimer sa frustration.
I have the right to reply. It was on a private radio, and I did mention that the consultant was undergoing some procedures under the municipality of Port Louis. And at no point in time I say that I was frustrated. I was saddened because those les marchands were very sad. So please don't use arguments outside the house, in the house, to justify your points as a failure of being a member of the opposition. Thank you.
Honorable Lakshman-Roy, I invite you to read Le Défi online of 29...
Listen, please, Honorable Member. The debate is not between you and the Honorable Member. There is a speaker. Everything goes through the speaker. I gave you the floor. Remember that. And I can take it back. You didn't know that. I have the right to take it back. But because you're speaking very well, I will let you finish. Please.
Speaker, I've quoted from the press. Factually, textually, I will give it to you later. The title of the article is Osman Mahomed, le ministre Ariram aurait dû démissionner. You go and read online.
So why you're mentioning that?
It's an article.
No, I remind you of standing orders and asking me. You cannot bring in the House something you don't want to say, you put it in an article or in the mouth of somebody else. This is against the practice in asking me. So learn it and practice it, you yourself. You are the parliamentarian.
But enough of Honorable Hariram. Let me now pass on to the Ministry of Land Transport, and I'm glad the Honorable Anangano is here. Paragraph 271 of the budget speech, all the way to paragraph 279, more specifically on the metro project, since the budget speech, the Minister of Finance has alluded to the extension of the metro project. The House will recall that the metro project, which was initially in 2015 under the aegis of the PMO, before handing over to the Ministry of Land Transport, has been the subject of several parliamentary questions of mine and interventions. The successive Prime Ministers since 2014, the successive Ministers of Environment, and those of Land Transport have somehow failed to protect the Mauritian citizens through their waiving of EIA when it was most needed, as in the case of the metro. Coming back to the metro, if an EIA had been undertaken and proper mitigating measures put in place accordingly, the floods, which is covered in paragraph 224 to 251 of the budget speech, and traffic jams would definitely have been avoided, obviously at a cost, but for public safety, which is now compromised. This government, therefore, is both accountable and responsible for the floods caused by the Trump project, based on my site visits, together with experts at 3 most severely affected regions. the Labour government had proposed to implement a proper metro on pillars, which would have not caused floods. The MSM government decided to implement the project at ground level, which caused significant interference with the natural drain and man-made drainage system, which existed before the project was implemented. The main driver for the change in the concept was political. To show that the MSM could implement the project at lower cost, the budget of the project was thus reduced with dire consequences that we are now witnessing with the substandard tram project. The government of India had no say in this political choice. They have only provided the funds and would have, without any doubt, done so for the Labour government proposed project on pillars. Let me now give more details of the severely affected areas I referred to earlier, that is at Saint-Jean and the vicinity, Richelieu and Caudan in Port-Louis. If today the Saint-Jean cemetery is being repeatedly flooded, and so is Cité Richelieu and even the shops at Place d'Armes in Caudan, incurring heavy physical impact on the inhabitants and operators, it can only be attributed to the wrong design of the system. Firstly, the metro lines should have been elevated and not interfere with the drainage system. Secondly, and very importantly, the design parameters, approach, and methodology of distributed drainage system has been wrongly undertaken, as more fully confirmed by the damning Metro Leaks document. Here it is. Honorable Ganu, you were wondering about it. Here it is. It contains all the cut corners, which will make our so-called tomorrow a perpetual nightmare. I shall limit myself to this technical part for now, and I shall leave the rest to the Honorable Shakil Mohammed as regards the next course of action to follow. He who then, as leader of opposition, had obtained these thousands of files in there. I shall conclude my intervention on Singapore again by quoting an extract of an article which appeared in Le Mauricien of 3rd June 2021, titled Sir Anirudh Jugnauth, A Personal Tribute. There one can read that Saj had two heroes he admired: Abdul Kalam, former President of India, and Lee Kuan Yew, former Prime Minister of Singapore. On a personal note, I chose to enroll for my first year in 1989 engineering at the National University of Singapore and subsequently at the Nanyang Technological University to specialize in civil engineering, because very often on national TV and in media, I could read, like everyone else, that at that time, he wanted to make Mauritius the Singapore of the Indian Ocean. That is why I had chosen Singapore, and I've even practiced professionally there, making it a total of 10 years I've spent in that fine country. You know, at that time, a pitched anecdote, the Singapore port was ranked first in the world. And today I've just listened to the figures. Our port has lost 30 places, and it is one of the last in the world. Among the last, 300 over the seat. I know Mr. Honorable actually is talking about later. You can check the figures. We are very badly shaped now. The answer is very, but have you noticed that this government has stopped comparing us to Singapore, and have you ever wondered why is that so? The answer is very simple. Mauritius is today alone. It is not able to fit itself in an international framework anymore. It does not compare itself to Singapore anymore, as it has simply become a third world division player over the last 10 years, and it cannot even compare itself to a first division player. And this is very sad for all Mauritians. But don't lose hope. We can still become that Premier League player if the Mauritian people realize the chance they now have for a change, for a better tomorrow, by making the right choice at the next general election. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you.